Hello and welcome to FragRadio's documentary on the independent games scene. We've been itching to find out more about the development of independent games for so long now, so myself, Luke, Maheen and Matthew decided we'd travel down to EGX earlier this year to find out as much as we could. With a lot of games that cater to small niches or contain gameplay that is far from ordinary, games like these offer a unique experience to players, experiences which are hard to normally find in mainstream projects. For example, we took a look at Kenshi.
I'm Chris Hunt, I'm working on Kenshi. It's an open world RPG. I've been on early access since Steam Greenlight came out, so about 3-4 years now. We're releasing this year, around summertime. Yeah, it's my first game, but I started it like 10 years ago, working solo, a bedroom project type thing, but I was working on it full time. Had a part-time job as a security guard, 2 days a week, and then the rest of the time I was working on Kenshi. And after about 5 years, I started releasing it early access on my own website. From there, I started recruiting a team. Now we're a 4-person team. I think making a game is its own challenge, you know, just to get everything perfect, to have all the features you want in there, have it stable, bug-free and well-polished. That's the biggest challenge. Money-wise, we've always been all right, because I've kept the team small. So I think a smaller team, although it has slower progress, it means better stability. I had to be a jack of all trades, do everything myself, but then, you know, if you make a game that's good enough to get you started, then the sales will start running in. Kickstarter type things have their own requirements to keep you busy. You know, you've got to sell out a bit and give people bonuses and things. And publishers can take your IP or control the project, make it release before it's finished. So I think early access is the one way where you're only selling what you already have, you know, and you retain your independence that way.
Have you gone to university to study any kind of related subject?
No, I'm uneducated. I just learned from books how to program. There weren't really any good courses back then anyway, other than probably computer science was around.
Yeah.
But
what advice would you have for someone that's thinking about starting out in the indie scene?
I think if you've got a dream game you want to make, then just go for it. You have to be willing to work on it full time, work on it hard. I think the mistake most people make nowadays is that now that they've had a formal education, they're looking at it as a business, approaching it like testing the market, trying to figure out what people want, what will sell and what won't sell. I think that's what the indie scene was supposed to circumvent. You know, people should try and go back the old school way, you know, and make games that fill their passion, you know, like make their dream game with the details that they want without thinking about having to pander to a market or a particular outcome or demands of a publisher.
You think the aim should be more pure, making a game, not thinking about it selling?
Yeah, just kick the doors down, do what you want. Don't worry about what people are telling you.
But after a bit of hunting, we realised that not all independent games are like this. Some want to create a more focused, action-oriented experience. So we took a look at these.
Hello, could you tell us your name, your title and a bit about your game?
Yeah, hello, I'm Mike. I'm the creative director at Infinite Estate Games, and we've just released a game called Rogue Aces on PS4, PS Vita and Switch. It's an arcade roguelike, dog-fighting, blowy-uppy thing game. It's just really mega arcadey, really fast, really hectic. It's a high-octane blast through the skies.
So is this your first time at EGX?
First time at EGX, yeah. We've been to a couple of smaller shows, but yeah, this is our first time here. Good, isn't it? Good venue.
Yeah, very nice. What sort of platforms do you find it easiest to develop on?
Well, we develop using our own engine. It's completely platform agnostic, so we can just press a button and release it to anything we want, really. I think the platforms that we most enjoy working on is any platform with a stick, a double stick.
Compared to when you were on your way up to where you are now, How do you think it's changed for people wanting to get into the scene these days?
I mean, when we kind of started doing our own thing, we were quite limited to what platforms we could release on. So we kind of focused on iOS. And back in those days, you could have made money on iOS, but now you can't. So I guess the main difference is now most indies are starting out on PC. Also now it doesn't matter how big you are, you stand a pretty good, if your game's good enough and enough people notice it doesn't matter how big you are, you stand a really good chance of being noticed if your game speaks for itself. I'd say there's more ways to do it now, but there's more people trying to do it, so it probably balances out about the same, which is quite hard. If I was to give any tips to anyone who's thinking about trying to make their own games and starting a career, don't give up, don't sell out, and don't make anything shit.
And in your beginning days, when you were trying to break in and get into there, how did you sustain yourself while working your way up?
Day jobs. Since we started Rogue Aces, I've been through 3 jobs, working in a warehouse, feeding tropical fish, and I'm currently working in a post office, which is fun, and also it keeps you a little bit more down to earth. If you're working in the real world, you get to talk to real people. I'm not saying that games industry people aren't real people, but they're not. Yeah. And being surrounded by real people, you don't end up falling into that mega nerdy trap where everybody makes the same stuff because you're all watching the same stuff, you're all listening to the same music.
And finally, tell us a bit about being at EGX up in the room with all the developers together. Do you all help each other out, or is it more competition?
No, there's no competition at all. Developer-wise, there's a kind of a nod of acknowledgement, and then we all share a few war stories, but yeah, it's great. It's a great place to be, great place to exhibit, a great place to speak to the people that like your game as well. And that's, for a developer, if you can watch people that are playing your game playing it, that's the most valuable thing ever, because you can see, oh, Jesus, what did I do that for? Or, oh, I should do that. Yeah, so this is a valuable experience.
All right then, thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
My name's Rob Hewson. I'm CEO and Creative Director at Huey Games. The game we're here with today is Hyper Sentinel. So it's coming out on the 11th of May on Steam, PS4, Xbox One and Nintendo Switch.
Everything. Yeah.
Everything. And it is an arcade shoot 'em up. So it's inspired by a lot of the old classics like Defender, Iridium, R-Type, bit of Space Invaders in there, but bringing it all bang up to date. Survival mode, arcade mode, medals to complete, online leaderboards. Pick up and play, start shooting things and just have a blast.
Mm-hmm. No pun intended.
No pun intended, absolutely.
So what platforms would you recommend for indie developers and stuff, especially because the Switch is just finding its feet at the moment?
Getting it up onto Steam is one of the easier platforms to hit. Yeah. Getting to consoles is a bit more of a barrier to entry.
Imagine, yeah.
And so you either need to work with other people or you need to have a track record and in order to get the dev kits and what have you. Obviously getting onto mobile is relatively easy as well, a bit like Steam in that respect. So in terms of getting a game out, I think Steam and mobile are going to be the sort of easiest for indies starting out. We're seeing obviously Switch is very good for visibility for indies at the moment, because it's early in its lifespan.
What is it like with other developers? What's the indie scene like? Do you help each other? What is it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of camaraderie, helping each other out. For example, one of the things we've done on our Kickstarter campaign, one of the rewards was a USB cassette version of the game for collectors.
Oh, wow. And
we've got 5 or 6 demos on there from other friends of ours in the indie scene, just because it's something we could do, helps them get a bit of exposure for their games. So that's something we're doing. And there's a lot of oh, did you know that this is the party to go to, and this, and I can speak to that guy.
So how did you start to get into games? Tell me about your journey.
I've been in games development for about 13 years. Mm-hmm. I started as a smaller developer working on the World Snooker Championship titles, would you believe? Then I did a game called Hydrophobia, which is published by Microsoft. And then I worked at TT Games as a game director on the Lego games. So I did a bunch of those, about 6 Lego games I think I did in 4 years. So that's kind of been my career, but I started in 2005, hence why I've got no hair left.
Compared to when you were getting into the industry and trying to break in, what is it like? Is it harder? Is it easier? What advice do you have for people trying to get into it now, as opposed to
I think it's much more competitive than when I was doing it. I mean, I remember I wrote a demo. It was in Dark Basic. There's no Unity at the time. So I programmed a demo in Dark Basic. It was called Mr. Marrow in the Temple of Egg. It was absolutely appalling. But in those days, the fact that I'd made a demo gave me an advantage because it was actually difficult to get to that point. These days, it's easy to get to the point of making a functional game. It's much harder to make a good game, but everybody's doing that, and there's a huge amount of competition. We've got a lot of great university courses, so I think in some ways it's easier because you've got tools like Unity, so you can make games much more easily and you can put them out on market. There's far more opportunities to sell, but on the other hand, it's much more competitive to get into the industry. But there is a much bigger audience as well, so it's kind of, it's in the balance really. Is it harder, is it easier? Some parts are easier, some parts are harder.
So what challenges have you faced in the scene, and how would you tell what would you tell
in the indie scene specifically?
Yeah.
There's a few things. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, visibility. Everybody's fighting for visibility, and I think it's easy to make a game. It's much harder to make a good game. You've got to really, 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 really polish the thing, and you've got to keep the scope controllable. Make sure you're not making something that's far too big. I think a lot of people, the first game, they have ambitions for this huge game. That's a huge amount of work. Make something small, make it focused, polish it and polish it and polish it and polish it. We've been to loads and loads of events where we've just used it almost as a playtesting session and got feedback off of people and fine-tuned it to the point where people can play it on their own. And then you've got the challenge of, right, what platforms are we going on? Do we have enough resources to be able to do that? As I said, we've used freelancers to be able to get it onto more platforms. And then it's about marketing and PR. A lot of people, I think, underestimate just how much work you have to do to get to the point where you're going to be commercially, visible. And you have to be visible before you can be successful. So the bare minimum is being able to have a really good game, but that's not enough on its own. Thousands of really good games never get noticed. So yeah, the challenge is also marketing and how you can compete with, frankly, people who've got lots of money to throw at the problem. You've got to find what angles you can come in at to be able to make yourself kind of stand out.
Well, in the community and people trying to break into the industry at the moment, there's this huge conversation about, should I go to university? Is it an option? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a good starting point. I think going to university, you learn a huge amount of technical skills. I think it's good in terms of learning about team working. It's good about learning, what's my speciality going to be? Am I going to be a programmer? Am I going to be an artist? Am I going to be a designer, an animator? And hopefully by the time you come out of one of those courses, you think, no, that's my thing. I'm an animator or whatever it might be. So I think, yes, I think that it is good. I think obviously you've got to do your research and choose the right course. But it's not the only route in. If you're super talented, you can make a game and you can either put it out there or you can go and work for another company based off of that. So there's different routes into it.
Well, not many people can be an astronaut and a games developer, so well done.
Well, thank you.
That last answer really got us thinking about how universities are viewed among the indie game community. We decided to speak to some developers and see what their opinion of university is and see if it's beneficial for the scene.
Well, I'll tell you about my part. So in terms of marketing, I don't think a university degree will get you into the industry. I think what people really care about is what you worked on or what you have achieved. Look, I guess, right, imagine you have two people. One person who just graduated from uni, another person who might have not graduated from uni, but in that time has worked on 2 or 3 indie games. So when you go to a AAA studio and you sort of present yourself, I guess a lot of the studios might go for the person that did an indie game simply because you learn things on the job or you learn about those things you would never do at uni. Saying that though, university is pretty cool. It does teach you a lot of good things. Work on projects. I kind of feel projects are more important than a piece of paper from uni. And whatever you do not get yourself in too much debt with it. Just get those projects, get some work experience.
It's definitely a viable option. They do lots of game development courses and things. There's also apprenticeships you can get, so there's lots of different options, I think.
And what made you steer away from university as opposed to just doing it?
Didn't want to get in debt, to be honest.
As far as what do I think about like a university degree, I don't care. If somebody's coming to us looking for a workable job, I just want to see the portfolio. I don't care what. In fact, nobody I know that works in industry gives two hoots about whether you've got a degree or not. You can have a first and then present a portfolio, and it's 100 mechs like everybody else draws. Right? It doesn't matter. But if you've got a game that's up and running, it doesn't matter if you haven't got any GCSEs. If you've got an amazing art portfolio, it doesn't matter if you haven't got any art. So as long as you made it. We're looking for people that can make stuff.
Have any of your team gone to university before going into game development?
Yeah, so all three of us studied together at Abertay University. Two of us were on the computer games development course and the other one was on the computer arts course. And we met each other there. We've been working on, as I said, game jam games there. And then after graduation decided to try and make a full release, which is Sparks.
Would you say that that was a big benefit going to university first to get into the industry?
I think that for my situation, which was trying to find other people who were interested in games and trying to meet people who maybe I would be able to start a company with, it was really, really beneficial. And obviously it teaches you a lot of skills that are vital. But I think there's also a lot of other routes you can take. And if you can find experience working with other people online or just find online resources, it's a really valid way. And it's definitely not required getting a degree in games or programming.
If you were going to do it again, would you go for a uni degree or would you try and get in it yourself?
I think I would definitely try and maybe do a part-time course and spend more time just creating my own games and working with other people creating games, because I think that's the most valuable experience you can get, is to actually just go out and practice the art and make stuff. And then if you can get some teaching or other learning resources online, it's really beneficial.
With universities being mentioned so much by indie developers, we decided to actually talk to some students that were at EGX to see what university was like for them and how that's benefiting them.
I started in high school. I was working with Unreal Engine, and I also have a game published in Steam, but it wasn't that much of a hit. It was just a project, a personal project in a team. And that was what made me choose a university for something game related.
What are you studying at the moment?
Right now it's somehow a basic computer science. For the first 2 years everybody does the same thing, and it's programming, maths, a basic understanding of the computer.
And George, do you want to tell me a bit about yourself?
I'm a master's student at the University of Leeds. I'm studying high performance graphics with games engineering.
Okay, and what were you studying before you became a master's student?
Before I studied high performance graphics, I was just on a straight computer science course. And the actual course that I'm doing now is very sort of industry focused. It's a brand new course. We've assembled it in conjunction with people from industry. So it covers sort of all the key things that you need to get a job in some sort of company making game engines. So we cover the sort of all the stuff you will need around programming on GPUs, the mathematics, and everything in between. I've learned a lot in the last year relating to game development. I've actually been able to, along with two other master students, we've made our own game engine from scratch in C++.
Okay, thank you. So I want to ask, what would your final aim be after university for yourselves? Do you want to start off?
I'm going to do the masters after university. I was considering maybe a PhD, but I'm not sure yet, or working in the industry. I would like to go for even creating or working on an engine that is already on the market.
And what about you, George?
Well, I really enjoy sort of the low-level side of games. So I love the technology that go into them and the performance optimization and the constant sort of evolution of the graphics in games. I've already got a job lined up for when I finish uni. I'm going to be working as a graduate render programmer at Frontier Games.
How do you think it's helped you get a job in the industry?
I think the formal education has two main benefits. I think it's really the fact that first you're being taught by people who know the stuff inside out. You're being taught by people who have done this sort of thing for years, and it makes sure that they actually teach you all the theoretical background that you probably miss if you try to self-teach. But also, of course, the university has links with industry. We have people coming in to talk to us, we have people coming in for open days, and we have, for example, there's a recruitment company that worked with me to help me get my job, and I wouldn't have had that sort of support from the recruitment side and my tutors and so on if I was trying to do it on my own.
Do you think it's helped you a lot being at university compared to when you were just at high school and you made your own game?
Yeah, I think so, because university offers a wider perspective and you learn a lot more about what's happening behind the scenes, comparing to working on yourself when you mostly just look for what you need at that point and not exactly what's happening actually in the background.
What's been your biggest benefit you've taken away from being on your uni course?
It's not even so much what they've taught me, it's that they've taught me how to work properly. They've taught me about the importance of fully researching a topic before you go into it, about how to look through the past research papers people have published and so on to find out all the previous ways people have attempted things, so you don't just fall into the same traps that people have done through the past projects.
I think that the biggest benefit is working systematically, because you kind of go step by step and try to understand the whole process, and you know exactly how to, you have a start and a finish, and I think that's really important in the process of learning.
I think really, of course it's different for everybody, but if you're looking to do, especially the low level stuff, I'd really recommend going to university, because if you try to teach yourself the stuff you do, it's bits you'll miss, you won't have the full sort of theory background. I find that now, when you actually go to approach problems, because I know all the common algorithms, because I know the sort of mathematical basis for all this, you can get a lot of work done in a short period of time.
Thank you. What about you? What advice would you give if someone's thinking about going to university but they're not sure?
I think the university is a really good way to create networks for the future, even though some people might think that they can learn on their own. I think that university also offers a place of networking, with a place of connection with the industry, and also they teach you how to learn. So that I don't think that's that can necessarily be learned on your own.
With all of these courses popping up in colleges and universities alike, young developers are appearing everywhere. We managed to talk to some of them and see what their award-winning game was like.
So, hello, tell us your name and a bit about yourself.
I'm Emily Mitchell, and my game Fractured Minds won the BAFTA YGD competition.
Okay, I was about to mention that. So how was winning a BAFTA? Tell me all about it.
Well, it was amazing. I entered my game last year and it won the game making 15 to 18 category.
So how did you get into making video games?
I've always loved games. In my ICT A-level, we did a tiny bit of games development and I was using Unity, and I really, really loved it. I loved how you could just create like anything you wanted, and from there I started really getting into it and watching more tutorials and making more stuff, and yeah, it just went from there really.
So for budding video games makers, what do you think about going to university? Is it a viable option? Did you ever think about it? So is this your first EGX, and how are you finding it?
Yeah, it's my first time here. It's really amazing. I love watching people play my game. It's really interesting seeing how every person plays it differently. Yeah, I love it. It's so awesome.
What were some of your worries as a young person trying to break into the video game industry in this day and age?
My main worries were, well, when you look at all of the games already out there, they're just so amazing and so incredible, and you think, how could I ever make anything like that, or how could I ever compete with that? So yeah, those were my main worries.
Well done, because you're here now.
Well, we've spoke to plenty of starters and small-scale people, but what happens when your games hit? How does that change your perspective? We spoke to Payload Studios to find out.
Payload Studios started about 4 years ago, I think. We've only made one game, TerraTech. We started out in left field, and small shows like that, in the indie zone, showing it off. We were developing it for about a year and a half when some YouTubers picked it up and did like some series on it, which led to some good sales, which is cool. We were very lucky with that. It's meant that we can kind of, build a bigger team around it. And we've been doing that for, ever since. We're moving towards 1.0 now, which is pretty scary.
So how big is your team now, and how big was it when you started out?
The first idea, there was like 2 or 3 guys just working on it. We slowly built, we hired various people. I was like the 4th person we got. And it was a bit of a slow build, and then over 4 years there's now 20 of us.
Were you a developer before you joined payload or not?
No, not me. No, this is my first job ever.
Cool. So how are you finding that then?
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah, I joined as a community manager, which is, I mean, you don't need too much experience for it, I guess. And working on a game like TerraTech, there's a lot of community interaction. We're very community driven. It's good to be sort of at the heart of. That's what I like about the fact that I started at a small team, because I was at the heart of the development process. And I've now moved on to more of a producer role because of it. And I think you get that from a smaller team, because if you're part of a big machine, you sort of can't move around too much. You've got your role set, but when you're indie, everyone has to kind of chip in and do their part. You get your hands dirty and you learn a lot of stuff, which again, if you were part of a bigger company, you might not have that freedom.
What's the studio's aim going ahead then? Are you bringing on more developers, or are you going to try and reach out to other indies to try and get them on board with you to help promote them as well as your own?
Yeah, so it's the weird one. So in terms of TerraTech, we have the team we need, I think, to make TerraTech, and we're going to get that to 1.0, release it on various platforms when it's ready. And then the other side of Palo Studios, I guess, which we haven't mentioned, is the Tentacle Collective. That spawned out of when we got lucky with the YouTuber money. We wanted to kind of give back to the indie game studio community, because we remember being the small broken game in left field and having to kind of work up. And showing at these events isn't cheap, and a lot of studios just can't do it. So we started the Tentacle Collective, which basically we bought some giant inflatable tentacles to help games stand out at shows, and we sort of curate, we buy the space, we build the space, we man the space, we do all that hard work, because it keeps the costs down. It means we can offer indies a chance to be at the show for a lower rate. So that's the kind of other side of our studio, and it's going pretty well. We're at Rezzed now, and our booth here is kind of cool. Quite like it. There's a lot of great games on it.
Do you want to tell us a bit about the other games that are here at the moment?
Yeah, so we've got a bit of a gang going now. There's a bunch of indie studios. We've got Block Ships, Hyper Brawl, Stuntfall, Orange Island, games ranging from kind of one guy working on it on his own to like 4 or 5 people doing it in their spare time, stuff like that. But they're all great games, really good games that should be getting shown, should be played. When
you're an indie, what challenges do you face?
Money's tight. It's hard to sell games. There are so many games being released on Steam every day. It's super hard to get out there and just have people pay attention to the game, let alone buy it. Which is why I love indies so much, because a lot of it's done through love. They're not in it for the money, they're just doing it because they enjoy it. And they try and, a lot of people got day jobs while funding it. Being able to actually sell a game, is tough. And I guess finding the right team, finding the right people to do it with you, is also tough. But yeah, it's a great community, especially at Rezzed. And I think competition's a bit of a weird one. At least at the indie level, I don't think there's much competition. No one's stealing sales from anyone. If more people are playing games and enjoy the type of game that you're making, that's only a good thing. Our Xbox booth, we're next door to Robocraft, which is a pretty similar game to TerraTech. And just chatting to those guys, we're just super happy that these kinds of games are, just around, and it feeds the players, appetite for it. Players sort of will play one of the games and go, oh, I like making vehicles out of blocks and blowing stuff up, so maybe I like this game as well. I don't think there's much competition. I think it's just, here's a cool game and here's my friend's cool game as well.
So PC is probably the easiest platform to go for, I assume. How do you find it going for maybe console or moving away from the original platform?
Yeah, so PC's obviously a lot easier for people. We've been on PC for 4 years the whole time, and we've recently been working towards PS4 and Xbox. Yeah, it's hard, it's tough, but the things that they require of the game and the build are things you don't even think about for PC. There are certain requirements you have to meet, so it is real tough. We've reached out a lot to other devs asking for help with that stuff, because we don't have too much experience with console, which I'd encourage everyone else to do. There's a few ways to sort of reach the kind of indie dev community. I'm on a UK games industry Slack channel. There's a lot of people there willing to help. You've got to make sure you talk to people, because I know a few studios that have tried to do it in isolation, and you struggle because there's a whole world of knowledge you need to know about putting a game on PlayStation, for example. So yeah, it should be shared.
Would you say that one of your biggest pieces of advice is to try and reach out and not be in isolation?
Oh, 100%. Showing a game off at a show like this, people's first thought is that they want to like show players the game and sell the game and whatever, which is important too. But I think probably the most important part of these events is the networking and sort of talking to other devs and reaching out and making people aware of like what you're doing, and you know, if you need help or whatever, like just making friends as well. I think that's really important. Yeah, so definitely, even if you can't exhibit at a show, come to a show and just talk to people, talk to devs. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for speaking to me.
It's all right.
From our time at EGX, speaking with so many wonderful people and gathering such brilliant advice, we found a vibrant, thriving scene of weird but also wonderful games. And we found that there's a lot of high-profile names that take a lot of interest. For example, Xbox.
Hello there, could you tell us your name, your title, and a bit about ID at Xbox, please?
So my name is Agostino, but everybody calls me Iago. I'm the European lead for ID at Xbox program. And so we're here today at EGX showcasing 24 of our great games coming to Xbox and Windows 10 very soon.
How have you seen the indie scene just progress throughout the most recent years so far?
I mean, I've been working with the Vandal developers for the last 13, 14 years in different roles, and there has been over the years, thanks to the digital revolution, so digital distribution and the engine becoming freely available, an explosion. I always say to people that we are creative animals. We always wrote book, we always wrote music, we painted, and now, because the tools are available and easy to use, everybody wants to create interactive experiences. What that meant, we have been seeing a lot of new innovative ideas coming out of nowhere. In the old days, with physical distribution, certain ideas were not financially viable. But the moment you have a very long tail and you can reach millions or billions of customers, even the smaller, more quirky ideas have a potential to make be a commercial success. So it has been fantastic. So many new ideas and concepts coming through.
I like that about the animals, about the creative animals.
True, right? We used to paint in caverns, and now finally anybody can get a PC and start developing titles and get that title running on their Xbox at home and publish on Xbox. People can do that with our creators program. So you don't even need a dev kit. So we want to express ourselves, and what's better than interactive experience.
So what attracts developers to Xbox as opposed to other platforms?
Hopefully developers that are working with us are happy about not just the commercial success they're having, but also the personal relationship we develop with them. So we are seeing developers saying to other developers, look, you should reach out to Ago, to the Idea Xbox team here in Europe, in America, in China, Japan, and work with them because they're quite cool. So we know that developers really enjoy working with us. And also, we talked about this at GDC this year. Idea has been very successful commercially. We announced at GDC that we broke the $1 billion in revenues for the program. So for us and for our developers at Gamescom in 2017, we announced that we were breaking 500 million. So in 7-8 months, we made another over $500 million for the program. So there is a commercial success, but a lot of it is just the great experience they're having with the program, onboarding the games, launching the games, and just how we work with them. We always say that we are happy. Not everybody's a millionaire. There are titles that don't make the investment back, but it's the same for music and books and everywhere else, right? It's a heat-driven business. But we feel good about where we are, but we're always out there listening to developers, trying to get feedback from them. What they like a lot, we like it. What they don't like a lot. And we always say to people, don't be shy. If you don't tell us what you don't like, we can't improve. And we always try to adjust the program, what we do with the store, to give the developer more visibility, make their life easier. So this year we started doing a monthly promotion that, while it's not Idea at Xbox branded, is always themed around the best puzzle games or gems you might not have seen, or we had a bundle promotion, so all the bundles were discounted, and so that's to surface the title. We do a lot of things like EGX. So last month we were at GDC, we showcased over 50 titles. Last week we were at PAX, we had 8-10 titles. Last week we had a press event in London, we showcased 10 Idea at Xbox titles. We have 24 titles today. We are working on E3. We are working on Gamescom. So we are really using our resources to give those guys visibility.
So what advice do you have for budding developers wanting to get into Idea Xbox, and also what do you look for in games to promote?
I mean, we don't have anything in particular we look for. The program is pretty open. We always like new ideas. A recommendation I always give to developers, especially the new guys that want to start in this business, is be realistic about your expectations. Not everybody is a millionaire. So you always hear the success stories, but there are also a lot of failure stories. I was talking to a bunch of developers on Twitter about this week. Is looking at the revenues is not the only angle. What we need to look is what success means. For some developers, success is, I'm one man. I mean, I don't want to work in a shop, or I don't want to be a lawyer. I just want to make games, and maybe a salary out at the end of the year is enough. So for one man, even if he does 10,000 downloads, 5,000 downloads, it's more than enough. For some other companies that we have here, they want a lot more than that because they are larger businesses. So for budding developers that want to start, it's sort of understand the market and understand what the commercial goal, what the goal is going to be. Is it commercial? It's just that you want your game out, you want people to play. You don't. It's a second job, so you don't need to make money, like a living out of it. And also then, if you don't know what the potential is, go and talk to other developers. The independent scene is lovely. Everybody's happy to share information and give advice, the experienced guys, and also as a platform, we always reach out to us. I started as an independent in the late 90s in Italy, and I mean, we barely had the internet. There were no resources. Today, at a click of a button, you can send a message to me, Chris Challa, Phil Spencer, Yoshida, Sony. You can reach all of those people, and we generally respond. And there are developers like Rami, Mike Pithol, and Dan Rocha in the UK. Successful developers are more than happy to share their experience. So go out, and if you're new, ask people, build your experience, and have the right expectations.
So in that sense, would you say it's harder or easier for people wanting to get for young people these days?
Well, it's always hard. What's hard is different over time. When I started, the first game I worked on, we wrote our 2D engine from scratch. Large bits of it were in assembly. Now, and that took months. Now you can go and download Unity, Unreal, Game Maker, and Coco 2D, and you name them. And in 10 minutes, you download the engine and start developing. So that's a lot easier. Internet made marketing and PR cheaper. So developers are very, very good with social media. They don't need to necessarily pay to build their community. At the time, doing marketing in a retail space was very, very expensive. Now, there were fewer games back then, so it was easier to be noticed in a way. So what's hard goes around. Now, visibility and showing your game to the consumers before you launch, that's the challenge. But also there are a lot of tools available, a lot of information out there. So it's not any easier, it's just that what's hard has changed.
Well, thank you very much for talking with us today.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me.
So with EGX Rezzed over and done with, I don't know how to sum it up really. Interesting, but a crazy journey. It was a great time with my whole team there. But at the same time, it's great to come around, see all the developers. It's great to see loads of people having fun, I think is the best thing I could say. A lot of other events we go to, you don't get the same sort of interaction with the games as you do here. You can clearly see the amount of effort that's been put into all the games and how passionate the developers are about their actual games they've made. EGX Rezzed, it's been a ride. We'll see you next time.